mouse finger-pointing game has continued. We have the latest for you on that. Good evening from the KTN News Center. My name is Ben Kitili. This KTN Prime, the top stories tonight.
Raila Odinga and his cohorts in an address in Westlands thought the Eurobond proceed will pay.
Mimi na support Raila apeane ushahidi.
Surprise support for Raila's Jubilee top leaders fight to counter Eurobond allegations.
Makamu wa rais akasema ati wale ambao waliua hao walimu ni majambazi kutoka huko pande ya Somalia, Al-Shabaab.
You cannot attempt to drive political advantage out of the miseries of others.
Elusive Mandera mass graves, another quarrel erupts between leaders.
Watu kama 20 hivi wamesimama pamoja na mavazi kama nyeusi hivi.
How the Baragoi massacre of 42 policemen happened, police boss testifies in court.
Na kinachonifurahisha zaidi siku ya leo imebeba kauli mbiu ya Mheshimiwa Rais kwamba hapa kazi tu.
In celebration without fanfare, Tanzania's unique independence anniversary. Welcome to the program. Our sign language interpreter is Maresha Owiti. Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga will not appear before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission tomorrow to share information on the controversial Eurobond funds. Through his lawyers, Raila says the proposed meeting is presently superfluous since the commission has not completed primary investigations. However, leader of majority in the National Assembly, Aden Duale, and his counterpart in the Senate, Kithure Kindiki, have claimed Odinga was angry at Jubilee for refusing to use the Eurobond funds to finance projects initiated under the Grand Coalition government. But in a surprise turn of events, Nairobi Senator Mike Sonko and his West Pokot counterpart, Professor John Lonyangapuo, have accused Duale and Kindiki of engaging in diversionary tactics to block investigations into the Eurobond saga. KTN's Patrick Kamimo begins our coverage tonight.
The ruling Jubilee leadership in Parliament mobilized their members who are on recess to a Nairobi hotel to give what they say are facts on the controversy surrounding the Eurobond. A day before the opposition leader Raila Odinga was expected to appear before the Anti-Corruption Commission to share information on the Eurobond.
When it comes to the war on corruption, Raila Odinga is the poacher masquerading as the gamekeeper.
Jubilee Senators Mike Sonko and Professor John Lonyangapuo, who snubbed the invitations, criticized Duale and Kindiki for what they called rushing to condemn and demonize CORD leader Raila Odinga over the Eurobond saga. They accused Duale and Kindiki of playing politics in the war on graft.
In less than maybe a couple of weeks ago, Raila had a dossier on NYS, and we've seen officers, NYS senior officers are in court. The CS has stepped aside. So it is wrong for our leaders, Duale and Kindiki, to call members from recess to come and oppose Raila Odinga even before he tables or he gives his information or his dossier to the Ethics and Corruption Commission.
We don't want this behavior that was going on before. Similar to the game you see in TV of Tom and Jerry, to be played in the arena of Kenya, and Kenyans are treated to that drama.
The Jubilee Brigade claims Raila's attacks on the sovereign bond has been fueled by the government's refusal to finance infrastructure projects that were signed by the Grand Coalition government in 2013 without budget allocations.
Mr. Odinga is obviously angry at the Jubilee administration for its refusal to use the Eurobond to finance these rackets, which were designed by the shady and corrupt networks, both inside and outside the Grand Coalition administration. He knows the full details of these schemes and must explain to Kenyans. When he was asked to provide information to relevant constitutionally mandated investigative authorities, the Honorable Raila Odinga has been engaged in dodgy and bizarre semantics.
There is a dossier implicating the Treasury and of corrupt official. Raila has inside people within our government who are giving him information. So let us listen to this information.
Raila's dossier and whistleblower status has become an enigma for Jubilee. Raila has declined to meet the Anti-Corruption Commission to share his dossier on the Eurobond saga. Through his lawyers, Raila says the commission has far superior legal and personnel capacities to pursue and obtain primary evidence on all questions under probe. Raila says he finds it curious and baffling that the commission is seeking his help in the investigation even before exhausting its superior capacities. Raila questioned why the commission has not invited other people, including those in Jubilee, who have discussed the Eurobond issue extensively in the print, electronic and social media.
If Raila has a dossier and he thinks he cannot go to EACC, let him give that dossier to me as the Senator of Kenya, as the Senator of Nairobi. I'll go with that dossier to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
We are fed up with the political gimmicks and masquerades of the opposition. We have provided to the country the figures of how the money was raised, received, and utilized. And if the opposition think they have contrary information, they must present as a duty, not as a privilege. As a duty, they must provide that information to the relevant authorities.
Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
So the question and the quest for answers continues. On the big question tonight, we are asking you, do you support Raila's decision not to appear before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission? Join this conversation by texting your views to the number 2155. You can also join that conversation online on Twitter. Tweet us at Ben_Kitili, at KTN Kenya, and at KTN News. We shall be sampling some of your views during this live newscast. In other news, it was a two-pronged attack by the Jubilee team against the opposition leader Raila Odinga. As a Senate Majority Leader Kithure Kindiki led political front, the National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale tried to give what he called facts and figures of the sovereign bond billions. Duale says every shilling has been accounted for and any claims otherwise are just hot air.
The members of the Jubilee coalition emerging after holding talks for nearly 3 hours at a Nairobi hotel. Key on their agenda is the Eurobond saga that has now become the latest nightmare that President Uhuru Kenyatta's government has to contend with. The leaders now pointing a finger of blame at Code leader Raila Odinga, whom they say expected to collect commission on projects whose deals they claimed he entered into prior to the last general election and which he believed the funds raised through the Eurobond would finance. The leaders claim that Raila entered deals in the Greenfield Airport project, the National Youth Service second and third phase equipment program, and the urban commuter train projects that slashed a sizable amount of the Eurobond.
The rumor, the propaganda that the court leader is peddling around are pure lies, pure politics, and if he wants to disagree with us, we are challenging him. As he claims, we are challenging him to provide figures the way we have provided to the country, or to work, as he has been called, to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
The leaders also insisting that the Jubilee administration inherited 120 billion shillings in debt from hastily signed contracts in the road sector under the Grand Coalition government, where Raila Odinga was a co-principal.
Was that money received? The answer is yes. Has that money been disbursed in development projects in various ministries? The answer is yes. Has any money been stolen? The answer is no, and absolutely no.
The leaders say that 53 billion shillings from the bond money went into paying a syndicate loan under the Grand Coalition government, and the rest of the funds disbursed to various government ministries. Ministries such as that of Transport and Infrastructure that got 15 billion shillings from the bond. A further 2.9 billion shillings was directed to the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, while the Agriculture Ministry received 3.1 billion shillings from the proceeds of the money. In total, 19 ministries received cash from the bond, but critics of the deal have raised concern over the provision of evidence of specific projects that were funded by the money.
We need to know where this money went to. Such huge sums of money cannot go unnoticed.
Now there's a big story that Raila is not telling Kenyans. He's only giving us one side. So we decided to look for the grave. A real one. Not the one in Mandera. The one in Nairobi.
National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich has been in the last few weeks at pains to explain the usage of the funds, with the opposition insisting that the funds may have been channeled to private use. Claims that parliamentarians from the Jubilee coalition insist is nothing but the opposition blowing hot air over a matter now being investigated by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which has been instructed by the Director of Public Prosecutions, Keriako Tobiko, to table a full report over the matter by the 12th of this month. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Away from the controversial sovereign bond billions, 3 years after the shocking massacre of 42 police officers in Kenya's Baragoi area, the trial of 7 suspects is underway in the county of Nakuru. Former Samburu North police bosses described before the High Court a scene of horror as attackers mowed down police officers with bullets at Suguta Valley. Here's more.
Appearing before Justice Maureen Odero, the then Senior Superintendent of Police Crispinas Mahanu painted a picture of a painful ordeal, an incident that occurred a few days after reports of cattle raid between the Samburu and Turkana communities in December 2012. 7 suspects were in the dock.
Wakati naongoza hii kikosi, kwa vile hatukuwa tumeenda na ila aliyekuwa operations commander, tulistukia tu kama sasa mita 15 mbele yetu, tukimwagiwa marisasi, ni sasa mahindi inamwagwa kwa debe ambayo iko tupu.
He narrated how a police officer next to him on that fateful day was mowed down with bullets before the bandits advanced towards Suguta Valley.
Akarudia mheshimiwa kusema ninakufa. Mara ya 3 mheshimiwa, ninakufa. Na nikasikia tu vitu vinamwagika hapo juu. Nikasikia tu hiyo ni damu sasa inamwagika kutoka kwa mwili kiingia kwa jacket lake mheshimiwa.
Ofisa, na kati hao watu 20 uliona wakifanya hayo, kuna ule uliweza kuona sura vizuri?
La mheshimiwa, kwa sababu pale walikuwa mbali na tukiwa tu na macho tu, hatukuwa na binoculars kubaini huyo ni nani, yule ni nani.
He told the court that there was total confusion and communication was hampered. Together with some of his officers, they managed to hide inside a valley where they stayed for days before they got help. Mahanu, who is the 4th prosecution witness, said the bandits had powerful guns, including AK-47, G7, and a Mark IV used during the Second World War. The rustling of 501 cattle escalated to the death of 12 Samburu warriors before the death of 42 police officers. But Mahanu said he does not know why the 7 accused are being tried for the murder. Kamchemenza, KTN News, Nakuru County.
Now today, Tanzania commemorated 54 years of independence with a difference. Newly elected President John Magufuli, dressed casually and wearing a hat and gloves, joined hundreds of Tanzanians in sweeping streets and picking up rubbish in the main city, Dar es Salaam. This was after Magufuli, now referred to as a bulldozer, cancelled the usually lavish Independence Day celebrations and ordered Tanzanians to clean up their neighborhoods. Take a look.
A not so common sight on a day like this, Tanzania's Independence Day. And, well, not a very common picture for a sitting head of state. But this is the perfect actualization of the Hapa Kazi Tu slogan And no one understands this better than him, President John Pombe Magufuli, who cancelled the Independence Day celebrations and in its place fixed a national cleanup exercise across this country, which gained its independence 54 years ago.
Kinachonifurahisha zaidi siku ya leo imebeba kauli mbiu ya Mheshimiwa Rais kwamba hapa kazi tu, usafi mbele. Yani nimefurahi sana kwa siku ya leo.
Inadhihirisha pia kwamba ni kwa namna gani wananchi wa maisha ya chini wanavyoonewa na vikodi vya ajabu ajabu.
Namshukuru Mheshimiwa Rais kwa kazi yake.
And as Magufuli rolled up his sleeves and joined residents of Dar es Salaam at collecting rubbish off the streets across the country, the message of Hapa Kazi True resonated just as perfectly as Tanzanians followed suit in declaring war, or should we say independence, against dirt and street litter.
Naishauri serikali iendelee na mkazo huu pamoja na wananchi. Sisi tusifanye usafi kwa kushinikizwa, tufanye usafi kwa kupenda kwetu sisi, maana usafi ndo muhimu na afya zetu.
Kama angefanya umuhimu kwamba kila baada ya wiki tuwe tunafanya usafi namna hasa kila Jumamosi.
Magufuli, who clinched the presidency last month in a hotly contested poll, has in recent past introduced a raft of austerity measures to cut down on public cost and cracked down on corruption in government to cut down on wastage. The cancellation of the Independence Day celebrations came as a shocker to many Tanzanians and the world at large, as the country has always commemorated this day since 1961, when the then Tanganyika won independence from Britain. Magufuli said the cleanup exercise is aimed at keeping the cities, homes and workplaces clean, safe and healthy.
Kila Mtanzania nimeona amejitahidi, amefanya kazi na mazingira mpaka sasa hivi yanaonekana ni mazuri.
Maana usafi ndo muhimu na afya zetu. Alafu kitu kingine ni kwa na shauri vifaa vya kufanyia usafi kama hivi tunapata shida unapofanya usafi, gloves hamna.
Tanzania is struggling with a major cholera outbreak, with the health officials saying nearly 10,000 people have already been infected and 150 killed. And residents here say this cleanup exercise is a relief. Even retired President Jakaya Kikwete praised the cleanup exercise, adding that he is pleased with his successor's vigor, barely a few days in office. Since Magufuli took office, some officials have been jailed for lateness. The head of tax authority has been suspended, and the use of public funds to pay for Christmas and New Year greetings cards banned. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, Nairobi.
Well, how about a cleanup this coming Jamhuri Day? What would Magufuli do? Let's take a look at our big question tonight. Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga has said he will not appear before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to share information on the controversial Eurobond funds. We're asking you, do you support Raila's decision not to appear before the EACC? And James Crop on Twitter says, yes, I support because it is meaningless. They dismiss even before they are told. And Mandela Mori says, yes, the government has all the laws in place and institutions to undertake all cases of corruption. Finally, Moran Drew says Raila should go present his evidence like any other Kenyan. He should not be treated differently. Keep sending the SMSs and the tweets. The number is 22155. The Twitter hashtags at Ben_Kitili, at KTN Kenya, and at KTN News. You're watching KTN Prime. Many thanks for staying with us. We'll take a break. Don't go too far. Welcome back to the program. The Kenya government has given a 24-hour ultimatum to Mandera Senator Bill Okero and other leaders to apologize over claims of existence of mass graves and extrajudicial killings in Mandera. Interior Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri, who gave the ultimatum, says the woman whose body was found buried in a shallow grave in Mandera was a cook for the Al-Shabaab. Nkaiseri addressed the media as opposition leader Raila Odinga visited the area.
The Tuesday excavation of 15 sites in the search for bodies alleged to have been buried in shallow graves in Lathe area of Mandera did not find anything. A similar exercise on Wednesday yielded nothing.
There are no mass grave found in Mandera or any other part of the country.
Claims of the existence of mass graves was sparked off by the discovery of the body of a woman buried in a shallow grave on Sunday. The body, identified as that of Isnina Mohammed, was exhumed and buried on Monday morning in accordance with Islamic traditions, but was exhumed again on Tuesday after police sought a court order to exhume the body for a post-mortem exam. The government says claims of the existence of mass graves and extrajudicial killings in Mandera were a ploy by some leaders, including Mandera Senator Bill Okero, to discredit the government's war on terror, and the government wants an apology.
Anybody who made this outrageous, outlandish, creating despondency to the citizen of this country, he will have to retract and apologize to Kenyans in the world. And if he doesn't do that, whoever it is, if it is the senator, Bill Okero, then the law will take its course. By tomorrow, if they haven't apologized, the consequences are grave.
With mystery still surrounding the death of Isnina Mohammed, who was a tea vendor and who went missing last Thursday, the man in charge of the country's security says she once worked for the Al-Shabaab.
She is alleged to have been a cook for Al-Shabaab in Bulahawa. And when Al-Shabaab also overran or were routed out of Bulahawa, she ran to Kenya, she ran to Mandera, and she started working in a kiosk selling tea. So that's how much we know about her. So she is a sympathizer or she's a member of Al-Shabaab, so we don't know what happened to her. She could have been killed by their people or something.
Opposition leader Raila Odinga and other CORD leaders visited Mandera to condole with the family of Isnina. He toured the area alleged to have had mass graves and addressed a gathering at the Mandera bus park.
Tumekuja Mandera na tumekuja na huzuni mingi, manake tumesikia yale ambayo yamefanyika hapa Mandera.
But as Raila got a warm welcome from a section of residents, not all local leaders were happy about his visit.
Please do not come and add to our misery by trying to do politics with the misery of Mandera people. Fursa wa Raila kuja kupiga siasa ilikuwa wakati tulikuwa tumepata bus attack na kupoteza zaidi ya 28 teachers and other officers.
The results of a post-mortem exam on the body of Isnina Mohammed are yet to be made public, even as the clock ticks away on the government's 24-hour ultimatum to leaders to apologize over their remarks on the graves mystery. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Welcome to Business. I'm Joy Doreen Bira. For years, Kenya's service sector has suffered the harsh and restrictive laws and policies implemented by various service bodies. And as Ashley Mazuri reports, the Competitive Authority of Kenya will implement a framework that will level the playing field for all businesses.
Kenya has long been lauded as being the gateway into Africa and preferred investment destination for foreign and domestic investments. However, the reality on the ground has been far from dreamy, owing to the restrictive policies, laws and statutory instruments implemented by the various regulatory bodies over the years that have impeded competition and inhibited economic growth in the country as investors shied away. To combat this and ease the cost of doing business, the Competition Authority of Kenya and the World Bank carried out a survey to identify the regulatory obstacles as the country seeks to attract investors.
There is ample scope to ease regulations that restrict competition and distort markets and business decisions. These regulations tend to be more prevalent in Kenya.
The result is the anti-competitive regulations report, which identifies Kenya as a country with most significant barriers to entrepreneurship owing to the burdensome entry regulations. The report also reveals that barriers to trade and investment are higher due to the limited use of mutual recognition agreements and international standards, which has negative effects on the way markets function and eliminates the incentives to compete.
It's for these reasons that the National Treasury will keenly interrogate this report with the ultimate agenda of implementing its recommendations. In addition, we shall explore the best mechanism to sensitize our county governments on the content and recommendation of this report in order to motivate them to accord its space their policy-making decision.
Competition Authority now says it will be implementing the recommendations over the next 1 year as the country seeks to boost its attractiveness to investors. Among the proposal is the removal of restrictive regulations in the country's services sectors and simplification of policies to make compliance easier, faster and cheaper. The plan should lead to a level playing field for all businesses from different sectors, job creation, easy access of products and services, and a more predictable and transparent environment vital for businesses to thrive. And this, the agency hopes, will result in a 0.39% increase in the GDP, equivalent to $218 million by 2016. Ashley Mazuri, KTN Business.
So it's just about 5 days to the World Trade Organization 10th Ministerial Conference that is going to be happening for the first time in sub-Saharan Africa. The African continent is rising and there's a youthful population, and so all eyes are focused on Africa. So it's going to be happening between the 15th and the 18th of December, which is about 5 days away, and it's expected to inject about 2.6 billion Kenya shillings into the economy, and Kenya is expecting about 7,000 delegates for this ministerial conference. Now let's just take a quick look at the WTO functions. One of the functions that they have, or one of their mandates, is to reduce barriers to international trade agreements and also increase market share with developing countries, many of which lie on the African continent. And also one of the other mandates is to ensure non-discriminatory policies, especially when it comes to free trade agreements, and also participation in global policy by seeking help from the IMF and World Bank, especially as and when some of the developing countries need it. And let's look at the 10th Ministerial Conference and what it's going to be focusing on. We expect that there's going to be an increase in export surplus as some of the talks that we are expecting to be held, and also adoption of dynamic policies for Africa that can ease trade with Africa and the West and Asia as well. And also we expect pressure from the pressure on the developed countries from the developing countries to reduce on the subsidies to allow developing countries as well trade more. And if we look at the previous ministerial conference that happened in Bali, Indonesia, there was a Bali package that was adopted, and some of the issues that were in it were streamlining trade, boosting least developed countries' trade as well. And we also looked at a number of other issues in regard to the Bali, Indonesia package that also focused on reducing barriers through codification of rules on agriculture trade and agriculture subsidies that remained the largest point of contention on the African continent. And so agriculture and the World Trade Organization is key, especially knowing that most of the economies on the African continent are agrarian economies or agricultural economies. So we're looking forward to seeing developing countries as well propose reduced tariffs for agricultural products, and developed countries against export of larger quantity of agricultural products, among other issues that we are expecting to be discussed right there. The obstacles in creation of a free trade area in Africa. We're looking at high subsidies provided by the EU and the US to farmers as domestic price support. And so that is affecting developing countries in a way. And developed countries as well give direct export subsidies to their farmers, which makes it difficult. But also the developed countries have come up with issues regarding the fact that they cannot give reduced tariffs to developing countries, because what we see on the African continent is low cost of labor and also a number of other advantages that the developing countries have over the developed countries. But we're expecting a number of issues to be discussed, but big on the agenda is going to be agriculture and trade, or reducing the barriers on trade across the African continent and easing the trade regimes that we're having on the continent. Well, let's take a look at how the money markets performed and also look at the listed companies. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. Thank you all for watching.
What is buried in the belly of our soil will translate into benefit for the bellies of our citizens. Africa has already taken steps to find African solutions to end conflicts and instability. The continent has committed to silencing the guns in our continent by 2020. We must give our people hope that indeed the guns will be silenced and that peace can be achieved in every part of the continent. Peace creates better conditions for the achievement of economic development and growth.
And now to the latest in sports, starting with Gor Mahia's first loss of the season. Their quest for a quadruple of titles came to an end as they were eliminated from the GoTV Shield tournament by Nakumatt through post-match penalties. The match ended in a 1-1 draw in regulation time after Peter Nzuki cancelled Michael Lunga's opener. Nakumatt custodian Zamu Adisa saved Godfrey Walusimbi's sport kick. As Medi Kagere blazed wide, Nakumatt will now face Bandari in the final slated for Sunday, December 13th.
KTN News.
And before we wind up KTN Prime, let's take a look at our big question discussion tonight. We are asking you, do you support Raila Odinga's decision not to appear before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission over the controversial Eurobond saga. And Milai on Twitter says they did not have to summon him. He has the freedom to or not to appear. Let them not wait for his dossier and work on investigations themselves. Michael Wafula says, in Kenyans' eyes, Eurobond was misused, stroke stolen. The onus of clarification lies with the government, not Raila Odinga. And Maureen Mutola says, nope, why should he? What was the ESCC waiting for? Let them do their own investigations. And on a lighter note, Bushi says, Baba is not summoned. He has to volunteer himself. Many thanks for participating in our Big Question discussion and for joining us on Kenya's most qualified newscast, KTN Prime. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from the KTN News Center.